go. Yeah, go. So we made it most of the way through Scorpio, I think, yesterday. We got somewhere. The Shaka Kritika, maybe we got, or Anuradha. No, we're still Anuradha Rohini. Anyways, I'll start it up here and where did we stop at?
We were already looking at Anuradha Rohini yesterday. I just don't know if you wanted to look at something else or if you were done.
I'll start there, and I can go over these things pretty fast if we have gone over it. So we'll do it that way. It's interesting, this Scorpio Taurus pair. Uh, because the Taurus is it's very image based. It's very external, the form of things, the earthy groundiness of things, I guess, in a sense. And then you have Rahu over there that just wants to transform it, not concerned with form at all, really concerned with what's deep inside. Um, what passed my view yesterday? Someone made a comment, oh, it's not the story. It's not about, sometimes it's not about the story, it's about the discovery. Um, and he was sort of saying that in the case someone wanted him just tell me what happened. And he's like, I can't do it that way. You've got to go and discover that for yourself. Right. And so there's sort of that polarity. And so Rahu is over there in the like, I got to go find out for myself sort of idea, very, very strongly. Uh, Jeepers, I don't know if a lot of these revolutions went on for years and years, but Jeepers, through this stretch, we get American revolutions, we get Spanish revolutions, we get all kinds of things going on, communist revolutions, ideological revolutions, all of that. And some of that may be started by the cloudy ideologies of the Sagittarius transfer, now coming into the revolutionary spirit of that. I get a sense of what's happening here. It's sort of like normal course of learning is from Aries to Pisces. Rahu and Ketu are learning backwards. And so it's like, for example, normally you like things go crazy and they change, and so you have to open your mind up to figure out how to balance everything and come up with some like new ideas and theories and stuff. And okay, now I got a new theory, and you start to apply that into the real world in Cancer, or sorry, in Capricorn, and you sort of put it all to the test there, and then you go and see if there's any benefit from that. And like that. Now Rahu's going the other way. He sort of goes through all of that, like the battlefield and the commercial stuff, all that, those Saturnius natures, making money, making it work. And so it's almost from experience now. Rahu wants to make an ideology rather than coming from the revolution, right? He's coming at everything backwards, coming at everything from the other way, right? So I'm just pausing because there is a lot in that, so I can see you're getting it. There's something quite special in that. Like, we all know they're going backwards, but like, while they're doing everything, they're coming at it backwards. They didn't come at religion because their world changed. They came at religion because everything got so uniform in a sense. Everything got so much the same and like that and regulated, I guess. And from all that regulation, then they said, well, we need something bigger. And so anyway, so we're coming backwards. I don't feel like I'm articulating myself very well, but I think you got it anyways. So um, and okay, so now we're the Rohini Anuradha sort of stuff. I mentioned there was a lot of this. Ketu didn't seem to be too concerned about things like innocence, childlike ways, not even concerned with lineages, right? Because that's what a revolution is. We're going to break all that old family traditions and bust all of that up and start something new now. Um, and that's like, well, that's how Rahu and Ketu are doing revolution. Normal revolution is sort of it grows out of that new lineage and something grows and grows and grows. And then there's a revolution and we go around and hear that gone away, way over in Taurus, went from Taurus to Aries, went away from all the lineage and went away from all those sort of family traditions. And those got lost. And then now they're coming around to something new. So, so this was interesting, that sort of Brahma nature as well, that creative nature of Rohini on one side and more that friendship nature on the Anuradha side. And I talked very much about with Rahu and Mercury. I think Rahu and Mitra is sort of similar. I talked yesterday, Rahu sort of like being that shady character out there, kind of like that bad friend, right? That one who's going to corrupt you. And so I think there's some of that too as well. You can see that in like, oh, the big scare, like, oh, the anarchist revolution was big for a while, and the communist revolution was big for a while, and for me, I get these images of Sartre. I have a very like, it doesn't suit me at all. It's very funny when I come back to Canada because I just reach in this bag and pull these clothes out, and someone bought me a winter jacket, like a Sartre type jacket, you know, that RE type thing, and very for me, it's a very Aquarius. It suits Aquarius people very well, but not me so much. Um, but Sartre also was a revolutionary. So I'm wearing my Sartre jacket around Red Deer. Doesn't suit me Red Deer at all either. So I'm the shady Rahu character going around going, hey, you like astrology? Uh, I'm not getting any bites. I don't know, one young 19-year-old girl, she works in a cafe here I go to. That's about it. So a really shady character, right? Um, so there's my Rahu, and I'm really feeling this is, I didn't realize until last night how sensitive this whole stretch, the polarity from here to Libra is for me, because my sun and moon and then my Rahu and Ketu, and I just have so many planets that are involved in this polarity. I think it's been, anyways, it's been shaking me. It's shaky time. So, oh yeah, I talked about all that stream of consciousness stuff. That's, I think, anyways, that's some of the shaky stuff I think that I'm hitting is I've been doing all this sort of hard work with the astrology work, and I've had a lot of clients coming to me, not a lot, but anyways, enough, coming to me and bringing up a lot of my old writing where I used to just like almost like stream of consciousness stuff. Um, and so that's been interesting. And I've been feeling that I want to get back to just that raw stuff that makes me kind of uncomfortable again. Uh, I don't know what that's gonna bring. Um, so I'm just scrolling very quickly through some of this. I added some of the charts here. We can see in the 50s the Saturn and Rahu were together. Um, that was some of the Red Scare stuff and things like that. So the rules and regulations were probably getting very strong. Um, International Criminal Police, Interpol, basically, these sorts of things. Yeah, we can see that was Arthur Miller scandals and things like that going on. I think even the In God We Trust, you know, that's like, there's some revolutionary spirit in that. It's like you go on your own, and I really feel it as a Jeshta, and maybe it's also because of a lot of strong stuff I have in my ascendant, but it's like, in a lot of ways, life is really between me and God, right? It's just like we just throw yourselves out there, and there's no precedent for this, and you just like go for it in a sense. And so Saturn is sort of restricting that ability through Interpol, through chasing all the communists in America, all of this sort of stuff. Um, Even things like these mystery crime shows, in a sense, they tell the world you can't get away with anything. you'll get caught. Look how good our police are, right? It's also that sort of like, be careful thing. So we can just see a little bit how that mixes. Um, Here, of course, we see like Ataturk and things, women's suffrage, things were really opening up. Saturn's nowhere near Rahu, right? So those rules aren't, don't seem to be, they seem to be a little bit relaxed. Um, I don't know what believe the Red Cross, but Red Cross also is just formed, and that's very international, very sort of global, beyond the lines. A lot of that ideology probably came from the humanism of Israel passed through Sagittarius. I mean, I don't know. I said earlier that Rahu makes that house stronger, but it's almost like I get a sense somewhere through this stretch there was like, I don't know, they tried twice to deliver mail by missile. It didn't work out either very well either way, and people did get killed both times. Um, and it was like there was another fellow, he landed the airplane on the like an aircraft carrier for the first time, on a boat for the first time, and little things like this. And so Rahu is sort of like, he gives you this like, oh, it's a success, oh, it's going to work, there's a lot of buzz around it. But then like, oh, everybody dies by the missile when it delivers the mail, and on the next landing the plane crashes. And so Rahu is like these false starts. It's something, right? In the future, then okay, now we have drones. They found a way to slow those missiles down, right? They found a way to do the thing on the boat and all of that. And so there's some false starting as Rahu goes through that sign. When he gets past it, it gets figured out. So I don't know if saying he makes it stronger is correct, but he brings that energy there. So
That makes a lot of sense when you read things like starting things during eclipses, which obviously are created by Rahu and Ketu. I just said this yesterday. That's why we're like on the same field. I was talking to someone and I said like, don't start anything really on the eclipse day or close to it because it's like a false start. That's exactly how I said it. It just came to me like one of those stream of consciousness. And it does make a lot of sense that Rahu, if it's associated to that false ego, no, it's not the sun, it's that Rahu, it gives attention, because where attention goes, the energy goes. So it gives attention to that space or that house, like you say. And then when it moves away, it like gives space for the real attention. I don't know what words to use, for the real energy to activate without that false mirage. It makes a lot of sense to me, at least, what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah, it's like it's like that theory of well, learning from your mistakes. And so Rahu is the mistake. Okay, now you've learned something from that. Now he's passed, you can see it clearly, now learn. Um, so yeah, like this. So it's an interesting effect as he goes through it all. Um, we start getting in the Kritika, Ketu through Kritika seemed quite a strong thing. There was a lot of big firestorms, um, and things like that. Let's just keep going. Oh yeah, this is tomorrow is another day. This is where we're going to start. Um, so I really found the Rahu in Anuradha. Those Saturnius qualities of Anuradha, oh my goodness. Margaret Mitchell, wow, what a character she was. To read a little bit about her life, I don't know if you've ever read it. She was like, oh, well, I got a bit down here about her. So she wrote this Gone with the Wind. She heard all these stories from one of her grandmothers who she grew up with. And we talked about Rahu and Ketu being connected with grandmothers. And so that revolutionary spirit again all came through the grandmother, the maternal grandmother of Rahu. Um, and so she grew up hearing all these stories. Her grandmother, though, like it was this time of oh, it was this time of revolution her grandmother went through. And so she said, she talked about the world of those who had lived in such a secure world and how it exploded beneath them. She told me my world was going to explode under me someday, and God help me if I didn't have some weapon to meet the new world. It's like that's really what Gone with the Wind is about. It's also a really beautiful, it's a romance story. She wrote all kinds of romance stories. I didn't go get a chance to go deep, but there's a little section in the wiki thing about like erotica. And I didn't even read the whole thing, but it sounded like it was more like her personal letters to her friends were very explicit. And she was quite racy, dating a couple guys at once, and she described herself as a shameless flirt and things like this as well. And so she was quite the character. Um, on the other hand, it was this like children are to be seen, not heard, the sense of discipline. And I think also it's that Ketu up there in Taurus affecting the childlike spirit, right? Just ignore that childlike spirit. You've got to be mature because your whole world could fall out. You've got to take care of business. And so we get her, which is a nice, actually a very soft version of the energy in a lot of ways. She was killed by a drunk driver, though, as well, at age 49, about just over 10 years after she wrote Gone with the Wind. So that's the other thing. Like, we talk about that revolution of Rahu and Ketu. I talk about that at the age 48. I think, like what she said, your world can explode under you at any moment is true for all of us. And I think something does happen around doesn't matter where Rahu and Ketu is. I think it's probably stronger. She was 49 years old when she got hit by the drunk. It's stronger for this Rahu and Ketu in this position. But I think everybody has a kind of revolution, right? It's that second, oh, it's when the office person realizes, they're getting older and my God, what does it all mean? And right, somehow I think this Rahu and Ketu maturity really does send us in a new direction. Maybe that's what I'm going through as well. I just realized, geez, it just occurred to me the other day. Gosh, I'm getting really close to 50. I didn't realize that. Well, it's half a century. Good God. Uh, a revolution. Oh, I was just a kid. Anyways, so we see that strong Saturn, of course, a Marine Corps general as well. And he was a Marine Corps general from the day he was born. And he's also working with children. He started at this, it's quite a famous military college in the US, Citadel College. And then after he hit 4-star general, he went back and now he runs the Citadel College again. And so we can imagine what his Ketu is doing to that childlike spirit. um, and he even talks about his own father, like just being super blunt. And I don't know if this is similar to her grandmother, that grandmother energy, but that like father dropped him off, first time really being away from home. Father dropped him off at college. He was expecting some words of wisdom. Papa was silent the whole way, opened the door and said goodbye and drove away. Right? That really hard military, right? Um, and so Rahu really does seem to be, and all these people, there seems to be a little bit of that going on. We see the engineers here, Susan Strasberg. It's harder to see it even in Margaret Mitchell, but they still grew up with that. Maybe it was a grandparent figure that instilled that in them. So it's a little bit, they have a little bit more freedom in their life. Miguel Cervantes, he spent a lot of time in jail because of his revolutionary spirit. Um, Look at Angelina Jolie, like she's also been very revolutionary for so many things in society and in the world. UN ambassador to something, 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 right? Um, Good or bad work, I don't know, right? I'm sure you could find both sides in what she's doing. Um, God bless her soul. One of my young nieces has this. Her grandpa was a biker. So that anyways, so that revolutionary spirit also in her life that way. We see Russell Brand has this. We see, I don't know, a client gave me this name of the gambler. Again, apparently he's one of the big poker players. And so there is sort of that sort of thing going on all the way through. But Bhuvaneshwari Saraswati, she was a oh jeepers, she was an Indian woman. She was trained as a doctor and did that for a little while until that was her mid-40s also. And she left her doctor practice and went and lived with a Baba and just took care of the Baba. and helped take care of him until he passed away. I don't know, 25 years she took care of him, and then took over his ashram and stuff like that. Kind of a wealthy woman also, like well placed in society, nice family, no reason to run off to the ashram like that. But she did, and very intelligent, anyways, very beautiful. Follows Kamakya. Kamakya Baba was her Guruji. I had some beautiful conversations with her. Um, and so that also Kamakya is also very revolutionary. Woman suffrage also, we saw a little bit of that going on. Um, I hate to put it this way, Kritika might be woman suffrage is also sort of ignoring that childlike spirit as well. Um, so quite interesting. And the childlike spirit really it goes through a lot of this Rohini, Kritika, all the way to Aries. There's a lot of that youthful energy all the way through that. That really, really beautiful, beautiful energy of innocent in a certain way. Um, it's like Kritika is the man when he's a boy, and Rohini is the woman when she's a little girl, right? It's beautiful, lovely energies. I really, really quite like them. Um, Ketu doesn't seem to be too concerned about it. Marine dumping radio waste is outlawed, so they finally say, okay, no more dumping waste in our mother oceans. Things like that. Vatican, Israel. Yeah, okay, so we're getting in some. Oh, here we get the Lebanese Civil War, Microsoft, the fall of Saigon. It's interesting. We're coming through an area I realized as well. Let me scroll up here. So we're about 10 years, well, almost 10 years away, 2030, 10 years ahead of us, 10 years behind us, sort of area is where we're working. Um, the fall of Saigon, it's interesting to see that here because the leaving of Iraq might have happened on the flip side of this Rahu Ketu, or very close to the flip side of this Rahu Ketu, and that was the fall of Iraq. No, not Iraq. When the Americans left Afghanistan, it was often compared to that fall of Saigon, and it looks to be the flip side of this Rahu Ketu, or very close. Um, it's funny to see Rahu and Anuradha and Tinder released as well, because it's just they call it a hookup platform, basically. Very famous for that, for the sex sort of aspect. It's also a little flame, the little Ketu Kritika thing. The symbol for Tinder is that, well, Tinder is Kritika is the Tinder, right? The perfect student. Uh, right, that Tinder that's ready to burn. Um, I don't know if you've heard that from the classics. That's what they call the perfect student, good Tinder, because it'll catch the spark, right? It's ready to burn. It's ready to, oh yeah, it's going. Um, so you'll see that anyways, the rishis, when you read their stories, you'll see those comments to students being good Tinder. Um, So I mentioned this stuff, but now here it is. This is I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. It's basically the founding of the EU and what opened all those borders there, and NAFTA. And it's interesting. They started a couple months different. Oh yeah, I put both their charts here. They started a couple months different. Rahu is the same, but we can see quite big. Oop, oop, oop. Are you looking at my version or your own version, by the way? My version? Okay.
Yeah,
So
what you're showing, yeah.
okay, yeah, I just asked because now I know that I can open the chart up like this for you. Um, so this was when Europe came into being. Very interesting to see this powerful Mars, isn't it? Isn't that like an invasion? Isn't that like a clandestine guerrilla invasion going on in Europe with that thing? It's very interesting. And then all this loss going on in here, all their second house losses going in here. It doesn't look like a very good treaty to me. At least by the Rahu and Ketu. We could maybe the treaty itself has something nicer going on, a nicer ascendant than this, but the Rahu and Ketu looks very insidious. The NAFTA is very interesting. Someone looks like they're making a lot of money off NAFTA. And global also really, really pulling it in. Um, And then, yeah, and then Jupiter and that Jupiter Rahu are making an exchange there as well. So that's coming, very powerful Saturn. Um, so it's interesting to see how different those treaties are just from the Rahu and Ketu aspect of it. And just in a short time, within one period of Rahu and Ketu, within 2 months, that's how much the chart changed. So it's incredible. Um, Doom also I found interesting here. This first person shooter. It's like the body is gone as a ghost. The Kritika is like this ghost warrior. We see Soleimani, the ghost, what do they call him? The shadow commander, right? The Iranian commander who was assassinated 2, 3, probably 5 years ago now. I don't have any concept of time, but also that shadow commander. And that's kind of what Doom is, right? You don't see the person, you just see this gun and he's out there just killing everybody. Um, so that was, I don't know, just these little things like that. I sometimes find those are the most interesting parts of these. Um, Microsoft, that's kind of interesting as well because it's like, well, also a bit of a shadow commander, right? It underlays the whole framework and just commands everything that your computer does in a lot of ways. So Microsoft's also quite interesting. And they're also, it's underground also. It's that underlaying foundation of kind of everything. So quite interesting. Albuquerque, I don't know why. I have to go there someday. There's a whole Vedic astrology thing, but it catches my eye every time I turn and look somewhere, Albuquerque is there. It just seems to pop out at me for some reason. It's becoming actually kind of annoying because I was just past it and I didn't stop. Uh, so I don't know. We see a dam break. I don't know if some underlying foundation or structure was bad, right? Weaken that dam and cause it to blow away. Um, oh, look at that nuclear power. Isn't that a hidden power of a certain kind? Howl, the poem Howl came out at this period. I don't know if you know that poem. This was the whole beatnik generation. If you don't know that poem, you have to read it. It's just one of those poems that everybody needs to read. Anyone with any touch of revolutionary spirit most certainly has to read it. The interstate highways, it was crossing all the boundaries, cross the state lines. It was a federal program that it did literally cross all boundaries. And it was little things like this in the US that a lot of people say sort of eroded the Constitution. It eroded the power of the states. And so slowly, the federal government was able to sort of take control of the whole country. And then thereby control everybody. And now we're coming to what we're seeing there. So this was little things that sort of like undercut, like it was part of the revolution, I guess, part of that American Federalist. I don't know what the Constitution of America did ultimately. It set up the opponents as the Federalists and the states. For those, anyways, it didn't really fix anything, just delayed it. Um, and it kind of moved the battle over in a sense. Um, and then politics, what the politics does is just sort of clouds all of that. The Constitution said this is your true battle is between these people, and the politician said no, 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 you got to fight each other. And so, anyways, so that's a lot. That's anyways. I don't know anything about anything. Um, I mentioned the 13-year-old Bobby Fischer. I don't know if that was also some of that childhood, no boundaries of the innocence. And so you got this little kid, right? Very Kritika, the little kid, right? Going up and beating all these grandmasters at chess. So very Kritika that way. To tell the truth as well, there's a lot of speech that happens. And so Ketu and Taurus, Ketu in second house, takes those limits off speech. These people with the Ketus, they say anything. They have no they have no filter on their mouth. And we often say that about Ketu in second house and this sort of things. They just say the weirdest things. Um, Yeah, we see Ketu and Che Guevara just going to Cuba to start off all that revolution in Cuba. Uh, been going a long time. Yeah, we see in this is in the 30s, a lot of this US federal, again, the National Mortgage Association. This was a lot to do with was this the New Deal stuff? Yeah, this is Great Depression. This is New Deal stuff. And so this was a lot of federal programs in the New Deal as well that sort of were quite revolutionary, and the federal government in the US also. And so some of this was mortgage associations through debts, through financing. I think this Kritika in the second house sort of takes a lot of limits off banking as well. Banking, storage, Ketu in second house in astrology chart, these people are famous for being terrible at saving money. They can't save anything. The classics will say the ants eat it, right? But that's like saying it just disappears. um, but it is a sort of thing, right? You put it in a box and you put it underground and it just disintegrates under there. You open it up and your box is there, but there's just dust. There's just Ketu. There's nothing left of it. So we're getting some of that effect, I think, in the world somehow through here. Samsung, the ballpoint pen. Ballpoint pen, some of these fiercer or harder, or even the ballpoint pen in regards to something like storytelling, really probably open the door to storytelling, right? You don't have to dip your pen in the ink and be all like this. Now you just have a ballpoint pen and you just run with it anywhere. You throw it in your pocket. Um, None of the charcoal of, like all of this. It was quite, I imagine, quite revolutionary. I could imagine being a thinking and educated person or something. You imagine being a university student, the ballpoint pen comes out, it'd be like, dude, look at this. Look at my new tablet. Um, it'd be great. So also quite a revolution in a lot of ways. And we think even in the storytelling, Superman was born with the ballpoint pen. Um, so we get these sort of fun things that happen as well. Durant line, that's the line that was between Afghanistan and Russia, British Afghanistan and Russia, sort of thing. First gold fixing takes place. Oh yeah, it was through this area. Yeah, one of the Rothschilds was born. Where is he? Was it the Rothschild? Anyway, something in banking came up. Oh yeah, it was the first the first banking notes. The first paper banking notes were issued. 2 weeks later, the first counterfeit banking notes were issued. um, so so here too with the gold fixing, it wasn't long before that London just changed some rules with gold. I can't remember, it's here somewhere, I'm sure, but London just changed a bunch of rules with gold, and then boom, right away, there's gold fixing. So we got that sort of stuff going on with value as being, I don't know, value is being misrepresented or value isn't true, or anyways, you're selling me paper and telling me it's gold, for crying out loud. Like, come on, guys. I have something funny going on. So, so we get this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, beginning of the French Revolution also. Um, the first of the five good emperors of Rome also started here. And so that must have been revolutionary. It ended, Marcus Aurelius was the last of those. Their luck ended, what was it? Oh, they ran for about 90 years. It looks like the five good emperors ran for about half, no, 90 years. Anyways, that has something to do with Rahu and Ketu. I just don't know what. I was thinking 9 years, and then I just tacked the zero on and went 90. And went, oh, Rahu and Ketu. But 90's not, but maybe it is. Um, so fun things like that. Here we are, Vishaka Kritika, full fire, right? Vishaka Kritika. This is fire times two. Agni is running 3/4 of the show here. Um, so that's quite strong. The rulers of the nakshatras is Sun and Jupiter as well. So we really do see that Jupiterian figure, right? With the thunderbolt, it's like a full Indra and his power combined or something going on here. It's very powerful. We see the axe and the triumphant archway. And so we do get the hero going through the arch almost, taking his triumph. Uh, some Radha Krishna stuff going on here. I don't know if that has to do with Elvis. Yeah, we did talk about that with Elvis. Dionysus as well. The drinking, we'll have to watch for that. I didn't look for much wine drinking and stuff. Seven wives and stuff. The sevens came up quite a bit through this actually. Um, oh, here we are at the Rothschild fellow, Edmund James Rothschild. He was of the banking family, the French side, but he was actually, well, he's the father of Israel. Essentially, he financed like the first Israelis started to go, sorry, the first Jews started to go there and set up sort of colonies. And he was the financed a lot of these colonies. His family, of course, was running all the banking stuff. He was the youngest son, I think, and so he just sort of dealt with the charitable, the science, and the philanthropy stuff. And a big part of that was to support the growth of a Jewish nation in Palestine at that time. Um, and so he supported some of those very early settlements of the Israelis. Was I put the name here? Yeah, the first site, Rishon LeZion. And so that was really the big Zionist movement, like that. Now, when I read about it, of course, you never know if you're reading propaganda, but when I read about him, it actually sounds like he had a quite nice thing going on between the Jews and Israelis. And he was really looking for partnership and working together. And even on the Jewish site, there was big farms, especially wine. Wine was quite big for them at that time. And anyway, so they had all these sort of big colonies, and things like that. And it sounds like he was really working quite in a nice way. And you can see he died in 1934. And so he died before a lot of and he would have been quite old by the end of that also, right? He was like almost 90 when he died. Uh, but anyways, it sounds like he had good intentions, basically, when it starts. And this comes to something I often say is good intentions. I say the funniest things to clients sometimes, especially if I get like an email and it's like this very anonymous email and very anonymous, and I have no idea who's on the other side. I'll say very like shocking things. So I get this email, all fully anonymous and signed a fan is all. And so I should be nicer. And we ended up having a very nice, like, we talked for about a month and beautiful emails, very nice correspondence with between us. But they had all these nice, and they wrote me this message about all their nice intentions, and they just want to help people and this and that. And I sent them back. I said, take your good intentions and keep them to yourself, because your good intentions are the road to hell. Not going to do you any good or anybody else any good. Just don't do anything. I was just like, really funny advice, right? Some nice meaning person signed it all nice, a fan and everything, right? But there it wasn't, anyways, there was a person on the other end. It wasn't really an anonymous person, right? Usually anonymous just want to kind of jerk your chain, but there was someone quite sincere on the other end. And so it grew from there, and it was a nice conversation. But we can see that sort of stuff here. Natalie Wood, I've talked about her. God, what a brutal life. I mentioned you want to read biographies and match them. She would probably be a very quick read. Her biography would probably be quite quick. Brutally raped by Kirk Douglas was the one when she was 16 years old, kind of child actress. You can imagine what being a child actress was like. She was born in 1938. Um, in those days, and then she ended up getting pushed off of a boat probably by her husband when she was in her 40s, I guess, mid 40s as well. Gee, it seems a very dangerous time for these people. Um, and so Edmund James made it twice that long, so not necessarily either. Uh, but we can see that she was West Side Story, Miracle on 838th Street, Sex and the Single Girl, these kinds of things. And so she had a few divorced. Oh yeah, it was Christopher Walken was on that boat when she was pushed off as well. And Christopher Walken has a bit of a colorful story. Would have been just a child, a young actor himself there. Um, Almost every woman falls in love with the wrong man. I suppose it's part of growing up. My mother used to tell me that no matter what they ask you, just say yes. You can always learn later. I think that Ketu also erasing the childhood to a certain degree, right? Erasing that innocence. Oh, here we go. Hari Prasad Charissa, the great Bansuri player of India. So a really great musician. Um, this is that Vishaka. I think, I don't know, you want to learn about this position of Vishaka? Listen to him and Zakir Hussain when they play together, the tabla and the flute. Full power, man. Full power. Um, that's you'll get the energy of this position here. Oh, there's the shadow commander with this. Uh, Kenny Rogers, the coward of the county, I think had something to do with this as well. It's a country song. It's about this. I don't know. I think I don't remember fully, but I think this kid, his father went to jail or something because of his violence, beating people up. And so he told his son, "You got to promise me you're never going to be violent." And so the son promises he's never going to be violent. And he gets picked on and bullied for most of his life. And just remembered, I'm not going to be. And so he holds in all this anger and all this hate and resentment and holds it in. And he keeps getting bullied. And then his girlfriend gets raped. And so then you sort of find out the coward of the county, he wasn't the wimp sort of that everybody and getting bullied. He goes to the bullies that raped his girlfriend and he beats the heck out of the whole lot of them in their house sort of idea. And so it's that resentment sort of building up in this position, I think, to a certain degree. And so they can look very weak. And they look like but anyways, so so this kind of revolution also can happen. And you're going to expect something with this much firepower. You're going to expect just boom, just an explosive, very explosive power. Oh, look at that cannabis legalization. Everybody, and this was in Washington, the first state in U.S. to legalize it, and so everybody was firing up, right? Lighting up. The whole Chitika thing was going hard then. And they don't smoke joints in North America anymore, I've discovered. I'm very old fashioned this way, apparently. They all smoke from the bong, they all smoke from the glass sort of things. And so it's not just like a joint, it's like really hot. Like it's really, I got friends, they heat up a piece of yeah, they heat up a piece of porcelain and then they drop their cannabis on that. Um, yeah, so when we're thinking cannabis, it's not just lighting joints. They're like, I don't know what they're doing. Um, but it's really hot. Like they're really heating things up to extreme temperatures. Um, Red Bull, they did this dive from space, right? And it broke the sound barrier. This kind of thing as well, really like intense, like really crazy stuff. Um, oh, look, Obama got reelected. That's crazy. If you look at his record, he did the exact opposite of everything he said he would do, and he wasn't a very nice man at all. And so it's kind of shocking he got reelected too. Oh, there was that Sandy Hook thing, right? And that turned into a whole like black flag kind of thing. That really makes sense for the heat of this, the black flag, false flag kind of idea here. The Channel Tunnel between France and UK that opened up. You talk about that also some of that underground spirit crossing over the downward spiral of Nine Inch Nails. Um, oh, Michael Jackson. I find this coincidence is very funny. Michael Jackson got married to Lisa Marie Presley. Um, the same time that O.J. Simpson killed his girlfriend, Anna Nicole Smith. I found another thing coming up a lot here was these longer names, Anna Nicole Smith, O.J. Simpson, Lisa Marie Presley. It seemed like there was these longer, and I don't know if it was maybe because that second house, that lineage is connection, multiple names or multiple something, I don't know, something with those multiple names was coming up a lot. Um, okay, we're going good. Yeah, we saw this too, Jules Verne stuff. The Nautilus was the sub in Jules Verne, but the first nuclear power sub was also named the Nautilus. And so it just sort of matched that speed and that the Nautilus and Jules Verne went for 60,000 miles, nautical miles. And so the Nautilus, it was still going at that point, but that also, you found the tunnel going under here. There's a major bridge crossing over the Indus River as well. Um, I found this interesting that France prohibits UN involvement in Algeria. Um, I don't know. This is something also you see a lot the UN doing. Russia has kind of put a precedent for Serbia, for example, of unilateral action to protect people, I guess is what they say. But this was also kind of a precedent back here as well that a UN member is going to go to war and just say like this has nothing to do with the UN. This is outside of your scope. So this goes back all the way to the beginning. Um, I often say this, things like human rights. Again, these are things that have very good intentions, but they get used, they get weaponized. They're meant to be there for defensive purposes. And as defensive purposes, they're good, right? Like leave the cancer, leave the commune in the community. As soon as that commune goes out into the world, well, then they're a gang. They're not a community anymore. um, so we can see this kind of stuff happening here. Uh, yeah. Found this interesting in 1938. It was a plastic toy soldiers. Those little things got released, and that's not super important because rulers have been using toy soldiers forever, and so toy soldiers themselves have been around forever. But this was something to do with that mass production of these toy soldiers. Maybe that revolutionary spirit, sort of putting the army in everybody's hands somehow. Um, Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, Supreme Court ruling in the US support the use of the espionage law to stifle speech and expression. And so that was way back in 1920. And we can see the same thing sort of happening in the US now, um, using laws to stifle free speech and all of that sort of stuff. Um, Basically, like if we think that government is Capricorn, and the markets that it's sort of like markets are its buddy there, Capricorn and Aquarius. If we think that governments are Capricorn Aquarius, then we know right away that governments are against any kind of freedom, right? It's just the nature of a government to be against freedom. Um, uh, and so that's why, anyways, fighting one or two sides of the government is kind of a pointless endeavor. And it's always sort of the people, the free spirit of the people, versus the government. And so we get a lot of that revolutionary stuff here. And I think that's because, well, this is the foundation of freedom, is the revolution, because it's the fourth house from Leo over there, who's all our freedom. And so this revolutionary spirit is really the foundation of all of that. And so if you want to be free, you have to be a revolutionary. You have to go for it, man. Just go for it. Um sorry, maybe my Scorpio qualities are getting the better of me. It's really funny, I'm so torn sometimes. I see revolutions happen that I don't agree with, but it's a revolution, right? I'm kind of like, well, things are going to change, and then everything's going to be chaos anyway. So do I really care if I agree with the spark? Um, so anyways,
But
here,
it does make a lot of sense what you're saying, and you're making me think a lot like governments. Actually, yes, they are Capricorn, but they must have a Rahu in them because they are, it's like smoke and mirrors. They create these systems like the UN, even it just came to me, like the Versailles Pact, the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles. It's like that mirror smoky thing, like we're gonna give you peace. And they create like a wow, we created like it's a revolutionary idea, but inside the system. So it's not truly free, like what you were saying. Governments are, if Capricorn is governments and it's ruled by Saturn, the limits, it's what it does. It doesn't give freedom, it gives limitation, but that's why Rahu also it's making sense for me to read all these world events and things like this with Rahu in the ascendant more and more,
yeah, yeah, it really does. It really does sort of, there's something there. It does stand out. It sets something. Um, yeah, so it's good. Also Vishaka, stand up for your rights. We always forget in all of that heat of Vishaka, he's ultimately ruled by Jupiter. And so there is that sort of sense of rights in there. Um, and glory and triumph, and some of these things are very sort of the Jupiter side of that Jupiter Mars sort of energy coming together. Um, a lot of this, what you see here is my copy paste from my Rahu Ketu, or sorry, from the bigger Nakshatra project, and I still have to get into some of these and edit them, and go through that, but it's there. It's It's interesting how much of a different perspective it is looking at Rahu, keeping Rahu and Ketu together to look at them. Like looking like Rahu and Libra, and then you go and you look at the Rahu and, well, sorry, it's anyway, you look at them separately, it's like it misses something, right? It misses a big part of who they are as a so much of our sense of individuality comes because of duality, because we're pulled so far away from Lord Shiva Mahadeva, and we're way down here, this individual thing. And so this duality is so much to do with identity, right? Because that's who we think we are, is this thing that's so far away from spirit. And Rahu is like, that's who you are, right? It's even like we talk about Rahu and Ketu, we talk in beautiful ways. How Ketu gives us miracle that makes you think, oh wow, there's something bigger in this world. And Rahu's like bang, 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 and you're like, oh God, it's a message from the universe. And we talk about that in really glowing terms. Those messages all came from outside of you. Sun is the one inside of you. He's the one, he's not saying, anyway, he's the one setting your purpose, your direction, your compass. Go that way, go steady in one direction towards your sun. Um, and you get that from inside. And that's so different than getting it from outside, right? Like the outside is a confirmation, there's a validation that comes with that. But ultimately, it's like, well, you can read anything into those miracles and signs and symbols and whatever the universe is telling you, right? Um, and so it's what you have inside, I guess, that's really, really the important thing in all of those. How does it make you feel? Um, so we get this sort of stuff. We still get a lot of strong revolutionary spirit going on here. Pope John, they called him the warrior pope. Osama bin Laden, again, even that Jupiterianness in the revolutionariness. Um, we've crossed the line, I think, with this. Yeah, we're in, where are we now? Lost. Okay, yeah, we are in Aries and Libra now. Okay. Um, it's too much. We're going in all kinds of directions. Anyways. So we're in Aries now. Wow, that's exciting. Um, and so we were starting to see that I don't know, that more warrior side, warriors of peace in a way. I don't know if you'd say that about some of these military officers. We get that there's a lot of spark, there's a lot of light in Vishak. Um, and so it's interesting here. We get Ravi Shankar. Oh no, he's the sitar guy. There must be, I think there is an album of Ravi Shankar on sitar, Zakir Hussain on tabla, and Hari Prasad Chaurisa on flute. You'll bet you'll get all three of them in here on a recording. Wow, I gotta listen to that. I love that. There's a raga jog by them. I used to say it was my theme song. Teresa and Hussein together, full power, man. Um, can't remember which one. One of the raga jogs. And it's one of the popular ones, easy to find. Uh, and that was when I said it was my theme song, and then a guy I was working with at the time. God, that was years ago. I was still in construction, and a guy I was working right along. He said, "No, no, your theme song is the theme song for this old show, The Littlest Hobo." Uh, anyways, so you can learn a lot about me if you listen to those two songs. Um, and you'll know a lot about me if you realize that those were both my theme songs at the same time. Uh, um, this kind of stuff. So we got some lighting guys. We got a pot farmer here, a lighting professional. He also deals a lot with the mist and stuff like that, the humidity, the atmosphere. I don't know. There's always some atmospheric. Oh, we're over to there now. We're over to Libra. Anyway, so like that. I don't know if it has to do with the airy quality of Libra or something like that, but something like that. But we see these. There was more than that. Okay, here we go. We see Leon Gaumont, early motion picture, an industrialist for that. And then we see Walt Disney as well, working with the animation and all of that sort of thing. Bobby Hall, I think he was known, no, that was his son was known for the hot shot sort of thing. But we see Sid Vicious and Sonny Berger, two very strong revolutionary spirits. It's funny, it's almost like revolution. Man, these guys are powerful. Um, and so I don't know if it's like the false start again with Rahu going through Scorpio. And now, like, look at these people. I almost got that sense when I was reading charts in people's charts when I want to read Rahu later in the life. It's almost like I read it as if maybe it's because Rahu's gone around a couple times. Um, maybe it's after that. And you can almost read the Rahu as in the past, like how I read, oh, you're coming from this, you've already gone through the battlefield. And now you're coming to this point. And so now it's like you've gone through the revolution and you're coming to this point of like seeking yourself, trying to figure out who you are. Ketu's up there in Barani, maybe no real, geez, I hate to say that with any of these people that they have no clear sense of self identity, but their self identity, I think, is masked. It's hidden. It's well, now that the true revolutionaries are these guys, maybe. Whereas the false revolutionaries are there, like Sonny Barger, the head of the Hells Angels. Like, come on, man, you want to get any more revolutionary than that? Um, and so we get like this, even for the underground stuff. Now we get Fred Vargas, a really great sort of archaeologist, doing that and working a lot. I think he was working with like Black Death type stuff, and plague type stuff. But now it's, I don't know, it was maybe the true archaeologist now. But only we can sort of picture things like bones, but bones being ground to dust or something. I don't know. Um, we see some, while Lucien Bouchard was his separatist politics, Robert Owen was he was an industrialist, but very much he wanted to set up these cooperatives, very much in a way like the Rothschild wanted to do. That's what these Zionist villages were. Was this cooperative sort of living arrangements, very communist in their outlook ultimately, but in a very nice way because it was communism focused on the communal size communities. And maybe that's where Israel went wrong, is then they wanted to grow beyond that and well become a global power. I don't know. So these kinds of things, maybe we see the female surgeon as well with this. So very like Vishaka, we always think of the cuttingness of Kritika, but now we're kind of shifted over to this. But the Vishaka is still very hot, very cutting, very surgical. And I think to be a surgeon, it would really help to not see people as individuals, not see the individuality of a person, in a way. And so maybe some of the Ketu's doing some of that now in Aries. So, oh, jeepers. This is something that came up a lot through this period. It just popped up in my world, all these other little places. Um, Osama bin Laden, he said, "We love death. The US loves life." Hit my little typos. The US loves life. That's the difference between us. And this came up a couple times, sort of as that. I think Putin said something very similar to this in his address. Um, Maybe he said we love God and the Americans love money, something like that. Maybe also came up. Um, but there is something. There is a very, I don't know. I almost think the mystic also loves death, right? And the true believer of God puts his life in the hands of God, not in the hands of men or the hands of anything else. And so, if we want to talk freedom again, I know this has nothing to do with this position, and well, it does. They're kind of freedom fighters here as well, right? Even the industrialist looking for his own sort of communal freedoms. So you do see that sort of side of him. Sonny Barger was also very much a freedom fighter and a lot. And I think it's that rights of Vishaka somehow. There is some like stand up for your rights, and there's some. I don't know. Again, we can't say that these people had no sense of self identity. Um, but I don't know if that was sacrifice somehow. It's anyways that Rahu and Ketu something funny in that personal identity um of these people and in their revolution and in their seek for freedom.
To
So
me, it sounds like Ketu is cutting that self-identity of Bharani, of like being born an individual in Aries, and their identity is actually shaped by what they fight for, sacrifice for, or like becomes the leader of Hell's Angels. But it's like he didn't do it on purpose, like sat down and said, like, my identity will be, it's like he does what he believes in, and like Ketu cuts that individual identity. I don't know how to explain it, but that's what I'm seeing with,
yeah,
yeah, with these leaders. It's like even Osama bin Laden, like his ideology of his belief of, it's what made him the leader in Libra.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is something here as well, like someone like Sonny Barger, and this also fits for Osama bin Laden. Sonny Barger always said that like I'm not the leader. Um, right, I'm not, but he was the sort of guy, he went on television, he wrote a few books, he sort of created the myth of the Hells Angels. But he wasn't really, they were all individual chapters. They all had their own freedoms. And I think Osama bin Laden was the same, right? He was this guy, but there was all these other like Taliban and groups, and they all had their own freedom. But Osama bin Laden was the myth of all of that jihadism. Um, and even from America, like North American side, and from my own brain, like jihadism generally also, not just the Taliban, not just his group. He's sort of the face of all that revolution. And Sonny Barger as well, not just the Hells Angels, that whole biker outlaw movement side of things. Walt Disney as well, we can say, in a lot of ways, similar to that. Yeah, so quite interesting that way. Um, I don't know how much someone like Carla Van Ray, she was called God's call girl. And so she like, well, she was a prostitute for priests, is what she was. And so she also probably started something with that. Oh, I wish Raphael luck in his pot farming. Um, he's a great farmer, so passionate about pot farming. And so I almost expect in his case that you're going to get, because he's sort of running one of these massive pot facilities in Canada now, and he's really like passionate in what he does. And a lot of these people in that, well, they're potheads and they're not passionate about anything. And so I think a lot of his methods and a lot of the ways he uses to grow pot, I think will other people will use them, right? He'll be a pioneer. I really wish him luck. I know I look at Leah and Luca, I know they've done a bit of pioneering stuff as well. Really great work in a lot of ways. So yeah, here we get, I'm writing about these people. Whatever I am, whatever I become, I owe it all to my father. That also seemed to be quite strong here. Yeah, I must give up dreaming, making stories. I must giving. Oh, this is Elsie Inglis, the female surgeon. I must give up dreaming, making stories. I must give up getting crossed. I must devote my mind more to housekeeping. I must be more thorough in everything. I must be truthful. The bottom of the whole evil is the habit of dreaming, which must be given up. So God help me. This is a, oh, she's an icon in feminism. Um, I'm sure she's ignored today because the feminists certainly wouldn't want to hear this. Right? I must devote my mind to housekeeping. I must give up evil daydreaming, all of these things. But this is like doctor, surgeon, leader of women's suffrage, founder of so many women's hospitals. Oh, that was the other thing. A lot of well, women's hospitals, right? Giving birth, those Brani sort of things were also coming up in here. Um, where else? Somebody else that came up. Robert Owen also did a lot of work with the women that way as well. Um, Osama bin Laden is demonized this way, but I've also read like he also did some good work for women in his time. He was yeah, some of those Middle Eastern countries weren't so bad to women until American puppets took them over. Um, but now we use that as a whole excuse to make the wars over there because our puppets are mad to women. Now we have to go and protect the women. So anyway, so we get a lot of that sort of stuff going on. Um, Sonny Barger, freedom is what we seek. Freedom is what we all seek, but it's what we do with the freedom that ultimately defines our character. In the end, a man's character cements his fate, good or bad. That's very Jupiter. That's very that Vishaka Jupiter, I think, is in there. Treat people the way you want to be treated. When they don't treat you that way, react. React to everything. Um, this is brutal, but there's some truth in that, and this is sort of that outlaw mentality. Outlaws are usually like that's what they are. They react on how they're treated, so you have to give them respect. If you give an outlaw, a true outlaw, you give them respect. You give Osama bin Laden respect. You give Sonny Barger respect. They're going to respect you in return. If you don't give either of those people respect, they're going to destroy you. And so that's this sort of power of that going on. Um, we're getting very close to my own Rahu and Ketu now. Um, and I have a bit of that mentality as well. I'm a very nice guy. People are nice to me and people show respect and they're good and everything is good. I'm the nicest person in the whole world. As soon as as soon as people don't respect me or they're not respecting people around me I love or even like just sometimes just generally being disrespectful in a space, I've got a little Sonny Barger in me. I can be very, very destructive, very boom. Mike, is that you? Um, some of my students love it. Some of my students have seen it really come out. And it's quite brutal. It doesn't go into violence or anything like that. It could, I suppose, if it had to, but there's never any need for that. As soon as it flashes, as soon as it flashes, my saber flashes, you could say, usually the situation's under control. But there is that. It's and I'm finding actually I have a hard time in Canada. Canadians aren't respectful to strangers. They're not respectful. Canada's not a very respectful. I'm having a hard time here. There's a lot of disrespect in a lot of places. I mostly can't go into most of the big box stores. I'm not allowed in them. Um, well, they have this thing. I don't get it. They pretty much insist nowadays that you carry your own bag. Right. And so I walk everywhere. Walking's not a thing that happens in Canada much. Everybody's got their cars. I don't see anybody on the streets when I'm walking. Very rare. We smoke. When we see two people smile, we do smile and say hello to each other because it's like, wow, there's nobody out here. So it's very rare. I see people. They're friendly when I see them on the streets. So I carry a backpack with me, right? So I can carry my grocery home. So I can carry stuff home. I can get around, do whatever I want. I think here a backpack means homelessness, right? Or something. I don't know. It's like I think I'm like my beard's trimmed. Maybe it's the long hair. I don't know what it is. But as soon as I go into these stores, they're like, "Sir, you have to leave your backpack." Um, and I refuse to. My laptop's in there. My stuff is. My life is in there. And personally, I think they're being unreasonable and they're not showing me any respect. They're treating me like, "What do you think I'm going to do with my backpack? Rob your store? Follow me around if you want." So I've told a few people off. Um, and they didn't deserve it. It was corporate policy. But anyways, for me, it's there like, if you don't want to be in corporate, if you want to be in corporate, you're going to get lashed by people like me, basically is the lesson. So I have some of that sort of thing. It's not, that's a minor thing. It comes out anyway. So we'll just move along. Probably get to when we get to the people of my position. But we see things, UM's arms treaty on the trade, on the way things, trying to regulate, I think, um, some of that revolutionary spirit, right? They've kind of it's moved through that revolution. Now they're saying, okay, let's do something about this. Take care of the way we trade our weapons. Um, yeah, we started to see more banking stuff. UN agrees to bail out Cyprus, triggers a major banking crisis. Um, yeah, American scientists used a 3D printer to make a human ear. This was like the first human body part that was made with a 3D printer. Uh, I don't know. I just if we think of DNA and things like that are in Taurus, what I often think when I see the nodes going through Taurus or the nodes in Taurus or these kind of things in second house is there's the potential for something unusual in the DNA, right? And so in a way, when I look at this 3D human ear that's just printed, it's like almost on this way to building a Frankenstein, right? Now you can have this perfect 3D printed ear that's just like, I don't know, like that. So it's messing with things somehow. I don't know if there's some stem cell stuff that might come up in this and through these transits as well, but these sorts of DNA and things that are sort of messing with that came up. Oh, the first, heck was it? Was it corn? Anyways, the first genetically modified flavor saver tomatoes, that's what it was. First genetically modified tomatoes foods were approved for human consumption. Um, and that kind of stuff. There's a really funny story on that. Back in my college days, that stuff was all like big news back in my college days. And so I was a full, like hardcore activist in those days. So I was writing all against all this GMO stuff and save nature. I'm just so nature boy all the time, right? And so I was just fully against all of that stuff, researched it. I just knew everything there was to know about GMOs, and I just really didn't like it. Um, and then years later, when I started to when I started to travel a lot, I would come back to Canada, say, and I wouldn't really have anything to do, right? I'm just traveling through town, and I would see, oh, there's a big protest in town. Oh, big protest against some GMOs, I think it was in town. I was just passing through town, and so, oh, I'll go to the protest. And so I go to this protest, and I didn't bring any water with me, and there was no water anywhere. That's one of the things about Canada also. You can't get water anywhere. If you go into a little shop and ask for water, they usually say no. I'm lucky, a lot of Indians run these little corner shops, and so they usually say yes after I explain my Indianness. Um, but water's hard to get. So I come back and I'm just visiting this town in Canada, and I decided to walk in this protest, and I'm probably dressed like I'm wearing like it's kind of a stylish Indian kurta, and I'm not chanting or shouting because I'm just parched. I'm just dying of thirst. Really hot day, and some woman comes up. She was a beekeeper, all into bees. She gave a talk up on the podium before the march, and she comes up to me and she goes, you're a plant." I went, "What?" She said, you're a plant. You're a spy for Monsanto, aren't you?" And I didn't know what to do. I just laughed, right? I was shocked. I probably stunned for a moment, and I just started laughing. And she looked at me. "I know you're a plant." And then I saw her, she went around, she was going around and talking to all the different other organizers of the of the of the march. Anyways, pointing me out as a Monsanto spy. Um, anyways, somehow this story has it's this double, reverse got pulled on me or something. Anyway, so it was kind of a funny thing. Um, again, it's funny. I told a lot of stories yesterday, right? And I'm telling these stories, and I'm like, even as I'm telling them, I'm thinking, Mike, what does this have to do with anything? And I kind of felt bad after class. I was like, God, that was just a terrible class. I just babbled about all this stuff that had nothing to do with anything. And I kept thinking about it all night. It was bothering me. And as the more I thought about it, the more I spontaneous realized, I was like, wait, that story had everything to do with those placements. Oh, that was actually, oh my God, that was perfect. And so, anyway, so I babble, and I don't think it has anything, but there's something.
I honestly think there is something, because that's why I personally love storytelling and myths, because behind the stories there is the meaning. We just don't know it how we want to know it. It's just like you say, like later, or when I listen to the recording some other day, or it has that archetypal energy of the placement for whatever reason, this story, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. It's like you just trust that everything in time and space has some meaning. Um, and that's a spiritual person. You see meaning, you find meaning everywhere. And that's really the beauty of I don't know. I was going to say it's the beauty of spirituality, but it's kind of like that is spirituality, right? Nihilism is you don't see meaning anywhere. So the opposite is quite beautiful. Um, Here we got Edward Snowden doing his release information. He released all that stuff about the US spy program through here. We talked about Osama bin Laden. Here we get the Taliban is founded in 1994 through this transit. Uh, Worldwide Wed Consortium is also founded. Three Gorges Dam. I don't know. There's always that triple, something triple always seems to come up through Vishaka somehow. Triple threat. Uh, Netscape Navigator. Oh, that's another like Microsoft, the underlying. That used to be, geez, you wouldn't have to be much younger than me, and you probably might not even know what Netscape Navigator was. Because that was kind of what I was using when I first started using internet, I guess, was Netscape Navigator. And so that was an early thing back then. It's funny, you don't even realize these things disappeared and you're not using them anymore. Um, but away they go. Yeah, the Sony PlayStation. I don't know if that has to do with first person type shooter stuff as well. So of course, that stuff gets released and then it gets popular too. So maybe some of those video games that got released in the tourist transit really get popularized maybe in the in here. Yeah, little things like Ronald Reagan reveals he has Alzheimer's. And so like it's funny. It's like that was how the heck old was I? I was 94. So I was just graduating high school around that time. But I actually remember that. And like one of the things that happens when a president reveals something like this is all of a sudden there's a lot of buzz around Alzheimer's. And so we're thinking now Ketu's getting into the head, into Aries. And so there's going to be that fogginess in the head, that confusion in the head, that lostness in the head, something like that, you could say. Um, so we'll get that sort of buzz about things. George Foreman wins the heavyweight champ. Pulp Fiction came out. Um, yeah, it was a pretty brutal show. That was big when it came out. I went with a girlfriend to go see that movie. Um, very nice girlfriend. We still talk actually. Very nice girl. But we went to Pulp Fiction together. It was big thing. I remember those days. Good days. Make you smile now. Get happy. Yeah, yeah. Um, so I feel so shy after I talk about myself. I feel like my little Rohini blush comes on my cheeks if you could only see through my beard. Um, um, oh, look at that. The night of the broken glass. Me and that girlfriend had a night of the broken glass once, actually. Um, um, we made it through. We dated past the night of broken glass, but it was one of those nights. Um, but we made it through. This is sort of interesting. So we see the anti-Semitic pogroms in Germany this is in the 1930s. In Germany. This was sort of happening a little bit in Russia as well around this time, the 20s, even a bit earlier. It's interesting because when I'm looking at the news, they say anti-Semitic pogroms in Germany. It, they weren't anti-Semitic pogroms necessarily. They were broader than that. Like even a lot of my family came to Canada because they were just like fanatic Christians, right? So anyone who was like, it was basically a lot of religious persecution generally going on, right? And it's funny when I read the news, it often comes up as, oh, anti-Semitic pogroms. And well, there was that too, but it was bigger. It was a bigger thing than that was going on. Um, and it's interesting as well because so we go back to the 30s and even the 20s and things like that. And we got like say my family coming to North America. That was around the same time the Jews were still trying to get a foothold into Arizona into Israel. And so it's like you saw this period where it seems like a lot of these different religions were getting scattered and looking for new homes and looking for new places. And there was all those revolutions that went on. And now, anyways, they're kind of sort of starting to set up bases in different places or something, right? So there's that movement of people and movement of especially by religion. Um, Division of the world by religion. You're not my religion, go away. You're not my religion, go away. Something like that seems to be happening here. And again, you asked about aspects before. So with Ketu up in Aries, he would be aspecting, right, Leo and our beliefs over in Sagittarius. Yeah, this is the end of the Spanish flu. So that Spanish flu has been going on for a little while now, all the way through this. We saw it yesterday. So through a couple signs, the Spanish flu lasted. things like flus are interesting. These things that are causing mass deaths as well, because they're generally exploited by the people in power, right? So we could see how COVID, it was a little thing that got fully exploited. There was some of that, but not only in exploiting the energy like that, but I suspect a lot of the deaths are probably caused by people who in power who can get away with killing people and very quickly, right? Oh, COVID, and things get, or there's a frenzy, right? And this might have to do with the transit through Sagittarius, that frenzy of the death and so many dying and dying. Well, it's easy to just kill somebody and nobody's looking into it, right? You make it look like that death, and so things are getting swept under the rug very easily through these transits as well. Um, so I get a sense that there's a lot of deaths in these pandemics that are murders. Um, we talked about the great game earlier. It was Rudyard Kipling's novel Kim that popularized the term. So it was just something that got mentioned sort of in passing, probably 20 years. Oh, yeah. Yeah, about 20 years before this, it got mentioned in passing and first got used, and now it's getting popularized. Um, Here, the end of the Boxer Rebellion, little native rebellions. Oh, here's Christopher Columbus set sail for the West. So he left Spain and set sail for Canada for the first time. Very excited. We love Christopher Columbus in North America. Like we just go crazy for this guy in North America. Um, he's all the rage. We give him credit for everything. We just said you founded us, you found us, you discovered us. Um, yeah, you cleaned the slate, all the dirtiness that was here, and set it up for all us Europeans. It's amazing, isn't it? It was all Spanish in the beginning. All this new territory was all Spain, like all of it, basically. And then the Americans got given this little independence, this little tiny corner in the east of 13 colonies. Um, and now they control the whole world, those 13 colonies. It's incredible, really. And that's really, well, that's sort of the truth of the revolutionary spirit. You give someone a bit of freedom, you give somebody a little bit of independence, right? It's really incredible what can be done. And so God bless Christopher Columbus. Uh, he's it's interesting nowadays because in Canada, it's been going for a while now, I guess. But even when I was a kid, he started hearing these a little bit that well, anyways, we in Canada we celebrate Christopher Columbus, but he killed all these Aboriginal people, and there's still Aboriginal people alive in Canada, right? And so they're like, well, we don't like him very much, actually. So anyway, so there's always there's two sides to everything, um, really, and so yeah. What can we do? And it's like, well, I'm Métis, and so I'm half Aboriginal and I'm half European, and none of it, as far as I know, is Spanish. But I don't know. I like the Aboriginals and I like Columbus, so we'll find some middle ground somewhere. Um, Go elephants, the triangle, the prana, the psyche. Oh yeah, Swati and Barani. I'll see if I can make that a bit bigger for you. Um, Yamraj and Vayu, the god of death, and the god of, well, the one who at least carries life, is Vayu, right? Vayu is the one who carries prana. And so we have this, we've got that independent, the self-going of Svati. And so we had that revolutionary spirit. Now we have that independence, that thing going on here. On the Brahmi side, we got the bee, we got the Mosca, um, the bear, to bear, to restrain the whoa, 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 whoa. I remember of Barani trying to hold things back, Yama and Yami, the sisters. So we got that big elephant going on of Barani, and we've got the little blade of grass of Swati, the windiness. So make that a little bit. to talk about that high intelligence. Do I have any people here? Didn't really make their stuff much. Oh, Lindenberg. Lindenberg was big. The flight stuff, I think, is big. That independence too. We see Charles Bukowski going off on his own. Um, we see Charles Darwin. This is an interesting way of looking at independence. But this was like, if you just focus on Charles Darwin, well, man is alone, where there is no God. Right. So there is that sort of sense of independence and growing things. We got Sadhguru and Abraham Lincoln. Really a lot of like Rahu is really charging up that independent spirit here quite a bit. But Bukowski says about that independent spirit, those who escape hell, however, never talk about it, but nothing much bothers them anymore after that. There is a sense of that, I think, with this. Charles Lindenberg, he was the very first one to make the nonstop flight from Paris to New York. He was the first man of the year in Time magazine. You get a lot of that, even when we looked at the past transit, a lot of these men are really like they're men, that independent, that strong, manly, I'm going to take care of myself. But a lot of that manly man of men are here. Um, and so he was honored as well by both France and U.S. highest honors. Uh, his how old was that kid? His 20-month-year-old baby was kidnapped. They called it the crime of the century, and then it was killed. And so they called that the crime of the century. Him and his family left the U.S., went and lived in Europe for 4 years to get away from it all and get away from it all like that. They called it the crime of the century. It was huge news. That would have been in 20s, I believe, right? When was Oh, look at me. Yeah, but I believe that probably would have been in the 20s, right around the time of women's suffrage in the US, everyone getting the vote. That's when that finally came. Saw a lot of the fight for that was earlier. You saw it also in other countries had women's suffrage before this as well. So again, US news, right? Um Yeah, here we see the Spanish Civil War comes to an end, and Francis Franco of Spain takes over, and he goes for it. There was also some. This was a little bit like the Red Purge of Stalin's time, but Franco also did a purge as well. And so I don't know if he ground a bunch of bones to dust in that period or what he did, but it wasn't very nice for anyone. There was another thing when we think of a woman's suffrage, we think, oh, well, that's a really great thing. Generally, oh, if everybody's free, everybody should have the vote. Um, and there's a lot to talk about here. Uh, and I'm not necessarily saying that women shouldn't have the vote, but what I would say is I'm not really sure that everyone should have a vote. Because only certain people are really invested in the nation. The vote is sort of for the government, for the people who are going to be making all the rules, and well, they're going to repress us. And so we want to be very careful of the people we're going to let repress us. And so the people who have a stake in being repressed the most somehow should have the vote. Um, Unfortunately, most ways I figure out that are best probably leaves me without the vote. Um, if I really be honest in it all. But anyways, so there was a lot going on, like in women's suffrage, because one of the big questions they were asking at the time is like, well, the people who were allowed the vote were the people who were going to go to war and who could die over the policies of that. And so the women sort of said, well, it's our children who are going to war, and so we should have some say in that as well. And the men were probably saying, well, that means you're going to base your decisions on emotion and not on fact. And of course, government emotion is very important for freedom. It's not a function of government. Um, right? Government's all that Saturnius stuff and all of that sort of stuff. So, anyways, um, well, what I'm doing is comparing women's suffrage to Franco getting leadership of Spain. And what else? Oh, we did have a Civil Rights Act. Anyways, So I'm not I'm not saying very nice things about it. Um, so, but it's interesting that woman suffrage in the USA happened in a similar transit as Catherine the Great getting power of Russia. And this was that 1762 stuff. This was right around the time of Peter the Great was Prussia. And then she took over. So that liberalizing spirit was really like through Germany and the central areas was really coming out through this period. Catherine the Great was also sort of the enlightened type ruler of Russia in her time. But she killed her husband to take the place. Her husband was kind of he's shown as being kind of an idiot buffoon sort of character. And so maybe he deserved to die. And people were quite happy when she did it. Sort of like when Hitler killed all the politicians, everyone was quite happy then as well. Um, it's amazing. What does the world come to make that acceptable? You know, what does it really have to come to? We get Descartes, his meditations on first philosophy. That was really like, well, doubt. Um, Doubting everything of who he is. It was very Ketu in Aries, Ketu in ascendant kind of moment for the world to doubt everything. And then he sort of realized, oh, wait, I'm thinking. And then everybody criticized him because, well, your eye has always been there right from the beginning. And what you did is you figured out that you think. And so that's very, very, very Ketu and Aries. He just ignored the eye, right? Um, so, so, oh, that's good. I love it. So we get this kind of stuff. I don't know. We could probably look in what Abbey Westminster Abbey was first consecrated way back in the 10th century, 1,000 years ago, and the Collegiate Church of St. Peter of Westminster and Westminster Abbey. And so those were also, I'm sure if we looked into the history, we'd find something cool. Oh, so it looks like we're probably gonna end on my beloved Swati and Ashwini. Um, this is skip past all that for now. You can read it on your own. So we get these characters. Have I written about any of these? Yeah, Frederick. Uh, anyways, King of Saxony. We get here. Uh, Morhi Ushebia. Anyways, I can't pronounce his name. I have no hope in it. Anyways, the guy who founded Aikido. And I think for most modern yogis, you could say, like anybody who's following someone like Iyengar could just as easily follow this guy, right? Someone who's following, anyways, all the modern physical yoga could just as easily be doing martial arts, right? The breathing, the sense of inner power, they're the same thing as far as I can tell. Um, so we get that sort of thing. It's like, I don't know. When you take aerobics and exercise and make it about something more, maybe. Um, but yeah, there's a line when exercise becomes something more, when it becomes a religion, maybe. In and of itself, right? You don't go to the church and pray every day. You go to the studio or you go to your mat and do your exercises every day. That's a lot like a religion. So so I don't know. We get guys like Prince. Uh, well, we can't even pronounce his name anymore because it's a symbol, right? And so that sense of identity, right? Just getting rid of it and erasing that sense of identity somehow. Aikido is an interesting martial art, right? Because it was a gentle martial art. So in one way, it was this, you think of that Aries Mars sort of warrior being gentle, making sure nobody gets hurt, right? And so these are sort of the theories of Aikido. So it's quite beautiful that way. So it's what does he say? Oh yeah, when he got his enlightenment, a golden spirit sprang up from the ground, veiled my body, and charged my body into the golden one. And so that sense of goldenness very much here. Then he started to practice the gentle way and working more directly with chi, and he set up a dojo. Before that experience, it was much more militaristic. He was involved with the Shintos, so there was a religion connected all the way through. but he came up with a keto later in his life. He had this enlightenment moment. I'll bet you if we look it up, it was around his late 40s. And so he just realized to go the gentle way then, and his whole started working with chi and energy. And chi is, like I mentioned very early, of the svati and the vayu. The vayu is what carries prana. And so here we're seeing it called chi. There's no difference. The yin and the yang, all of that, same, different language. If you try to treat them exactly the same, you'll get very confused. But on the surface, if we say the same, it's easy. It's really funny how that works, isn't it? Like you can just so easily say Ayurveda and Chinese medicine are the same. And if we stick to the surface, they're the same, no problem. It's these indigenous healing techniques that come to the same results and deal with nature in similar ways. Um, but like that. So here we get oh, some satellites are launched, the Lego movies. Oh, here we go. The euro currency. We must have missed something in the history before because now Latvia is adopting the euro. Um, maybe the match the European treaty that I can't pronounce. Maybe that also had something to do with euro. But we see that sort of coming. Belgium becomes the first country to legalize euthanasia. And so again, that just like the individual can just be killed or something. I don't know, something we think of the prana, the energy, the life force moving in irregular ways, maybe, or something we might think of with Ketu and Swati. Um, Ashvini, Ketu and Ashvini, that's the healer, that's the doctor. And so now the doctor becomes the killer. Maybe something like that is going on here as well. Um, oh, here we go. The session agreement begins implementation. And so that's connected with the other agreement that was up further about Europe. Um, Europeans' history is interesting. You know, I've never studied as much as I wanted. I remember when I was in university, I kept meaning to get to a European history course. And a lot of it was because of the European Union and how it came together. And I still remember the big textbook on European history. I picked it up and I tried to study it a couple times. And I just, one of those things that it always passed me by. I just never had time to like sit down and put European history together. It was always these little pockets of events happening in different places, and to realize that just to see how some of this is happening at the same time, and then it went and that happened, and it's just really instructive for me. I'm really enjoying this project because it is giving me a chance to at least have a look back at some of that European history. Like I talked about the Seven-Year War the other day, um, and how that went. And then this very Yashvini, Michael Jordan returns to the Bulls and he goes, I'm back. Right? That's so, I just thought it was perfect. Um, so we get this kind of thing. I get that US soldier, he stole a tank from an army base and went on a rampage through some US city, running over cars and just going crazy. And that's a little bit also that little Ashvini warrior getting ahead, or the, I don't know, maybe it's I'm gonna bring some elephant into that. Anyways, something to do with that little soldier of Ashvini, somehow doing on going chaotic or something. So Barbaro Confectionery. I don't know. I saw this Harborough confectionery and they're big for like they make they make a lot of the processed foods that's in the world. All this stuff that comes in a box. I don't know. I think it might be, yeah, that's from Germany. So I think it might be more of a European company. I don't know if we get a lot of Harborough here. It might be a similar, like it might be the equivalent of Kraft here or something like that. Anyways, I should look up more about Harborough. But we were talking about the prana and the movement of prana and the movement of life force and the movement of energy and well, processed food, that's all dead, right? That's there is no energy there. And so we get that sort of things. Here, I don't know, the sawing of a woman in half, the first public recording of that illusion of a woman being sawed in half. I don't know, that made sense to me with Rahu and Ketu in this position because they're sort of in that natural position of the zodiac to cut the body in half, to slice us in half and divide us in two. Um, so we got some stuff there. Spanish shipbreaks in two. I don't know, maybe there is something to things being broken in two in this period. Charlie Chaplin's The Kid is released. Not sure which one that was of his movies. Oh, here we get also the first, they started using tar. It was 1902. They started using tar for roads, tarmac kind of roads for the cars and things for transportation. And this is another thing. I found the roads very interesting. I used to sort of, I touched on building roads. I mostly worked on everything beneath the road and not so much the road itself. Um, because I don't know how to describe this. I worked in sewer. And I liked working in sewer because my options in northern Alberta was to it was to work with tar, or it was to go up and work in the oil industry, or it was to work with these I had friends who offered me roofing jobs. That was also tar. I had these opportunities to work with these things. To me, were just building a road completely annihilates all form of life along the trajectory of that road, right? And so, don't get me wrong, I dug ditches and cleared land and I annihilated a lot of things in my day, but I didn't. Nature has a chance to grow back after everything I've touched. It has an opportunity. I didn't annihilate it with a tarmac, right? Or with oil and things like this. That's something that always just made me really queasy. I remember they did send me. I worked one day on a tarmac road, and it had nothing to do in the underground stuff. And so the company just wanted to keep me busy, right? It was do me a favor, make sure I just kept making my hours. And they had no work for me, and I worked one day. I didn't think I made the full day. I remember I knew that boss on that crew somehow. And anyway, I went to him. The first smell of that tar when they started putting it down, and he was like, "Go out there with the thing and do that." And I just looked at it and I went to the boss and I said, there's no way I'm working on this crew. It's impossible. And so anyways, I told him I would quit if I had to. And he said, no, don't worry about it. We'll call you when there's some water and sewer stuff for you. Um, and anyway, so there's a tar going down in my transit, and I really don't like that kind of thing. So I don't get it, but there's something there, that annihilation of things somehow. Um, yeah. So, oh, look, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. So it's funny, those roads were built to bring more freedom, to expand the freedom, the whole interstate thing, to make everybody free, to expand everything. And again, now I find I used to build that stuff. I know about engineering. I know about how to build roads and how to build infrastructure for people. And the infrastructure in this town and a lot of North American cities, not a modern infrastructure, it's built only for cars. It's like when I'm walking around here, I curse the engineers of this city every single time I walk around the city. Now, that's not a very good track record for an engineer because I know how simple it would have been to just make it better, make it more walker friendly. I can see, I know, I understand. I even understand the land acquisition it would have taken to do it. And I get it. And it could have been done. And you are all idiots. Anyways, so that's how I feel about.
You're gonna love Europe then, because that is one of the differences my friends tell me, because in Europe you walk everywhere, like sidewalks, like, yes, there are cars, but that's something I cannot imagine because I haven't been really to the States or Canada, but not everything made for cars. I can't imagine
Yeah,
this.
I'm pretty sure the engineers working here, they never they never stopped to consider that anyone was going to walk on their sidewalks. Um, there's a stretch of sidewalk in the wintertime when you walk it, or I imagine if it's raining in the summertime, if it's a little bit wet or something, that hole, like you come to it and you can see all the mud, everything's just been splashed on the sidewalk by every car that's went by. And you're looking and it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe 300 meters stretch. And you're like, how the, how, how am I going to do that? Right? And the cars, they're mostly, I think they see it too. And so they move over a little bit. So they don't, nobody ever splashed me while I was walking it, but I certainly hurried. um, I certainly went on my way. Um, it's interesting too that we find War and Peace is written in this because that's very well Ashvini. They can deal with war and they can deal with peace. Um, the great warriors can do both. They can kill you or they can fix you. Uh, I don't know. That seems like a nice place to stop. It's random. We're getting late to the end. Um, I didn't eat my banana that was sitting in front of me, my breakfast, and my stomach's going like, eat that banana that's sitting right there, Mike.
Of
So
course, we can finish here, eat your banana. I had one just earlier.
yeah, so it I needed it to get through the hole, and so I'm dying 8 minutes early. Um,
Perfect.
I know it's okay. So very nice talk today, Dana.
Yes, but thank you so much for class, and I'll see you next week.
You,
Thank you, Mahadev.
Mahadev.